And welcome. This is Chartwise Women with Mary Ellen McGonagle here with Erin Swenlin, brought to you each and every Thursday afternoon. And this is the show where we bridge the gap. We bring to you our many years of experience, and we'd like to bring you to the other side if you're not already there. So it's all about educating you. And yeah, I think we have an exciting topic today, but let's start. I'd like to say a happy belated birthday,
Oh,
Erin. Yep.
thank you so very much. Yes,
Mhm.
Monday was a very special day
Oh,
because
good.
somebody very important was born that day. The world will never be the same.
That's it. That's right. Well, those darn birthdays just keep happening, even though.
Yes, at least we're
But
having them though.
true that. No doubt. No doubt. But yes, definitely wanted to put those good wishes out there before we dive
Thank
into the
you.
show today. Yeah. And so let's go ahead. We can take a minute here and share with the viewers what we are going to be talking about. We call this our anchor point. It is, in essence, the theme of the show. And yeah, and
It's going to be a fun one today.
mhm,
Lots of
mhm.
charts to look at.
Yeah, so today we are going to be talking about a very famous investor, someone who has really shaped the investing world in essence, and why his style of investing is working at this time. And it is all about Warren Buffett. And I'm sure you've all heard of the famed Oracle of Omaha. And he just turned 91 years old this year, and he has been investing since he was 11 years old. Must have been that a heck of a paper route, but
Got
yeah.
to start
So
somewhere, right?
that's right. That's right. So, for those not familiar, I can just spend a second here and talk about Buffett's style. And then as we move through and share some of the top holdings in his Berkshire Hathaway portfolio, we will share why they're being favored at this time. But essentially, Warren Buffett has what's called a value approach to the market. He likes to scoop up these companies on the cheap, but there are other criteria that are important to the companies that he chooses. And he does restrict his investments to businesses that he can easily analyze, where there's a lot in the way of transparency. Also, he wants to see management redistributing those excess cash flow, those funds back to shareholders. They're not greedy. Management is caring about their shareholders. And then also, Buffett famously coined the term moat. Does the company have a moat? In essence, do they have a product that really sets them apart, that is more difficult than not to compete against? So, those are some of the principles. But, Aaron, if you would like to spend a minute and talk about perhaps why his investment style is in favor now, I'll pass that to you.
Well, certainly we've noticed with sector rotation of late, it's been kind of back and forth. But when we started into this giant decline that we experienced earlier in January, we saw a flight, as we talk about, from those growth stocks that typically do well in your bull market situation. We saw a lot of rotation moving into what we call value stocks, which is primarily what Warren Buffett tends to buy and own, as you just mentioned. Then we have seen just recently this week, end of last week, a big shift back into those growth stocks, those technology areas. And with that move in the market, again, you're going to see a little bit more sliding over to that growth area. But the nice thing about value is that it usually sticks around. The main thing I always talk about with consumer staples and some of those value plays is that a lot of times they aren't very sexy. I
Mhm.
mean, they don't move a whole lot. Growth stocks get really exciting. You get those parabolic moves. Generally aren't going to see that in a value stock, but it also tends to work in your favor when the markets are really volatile, because they tend to be a lot less volatile.
Absolutely. Well said. And other factors will come to light as we move on as it relates to these stocks that we're going to be sharing with you. And growth is definitely bouncing this week. a lot of oversold stocks in that area going into certainly mid last week. The NASDAQ was down 14.5%, and only 12% of all stocks in the NASDAQ were above their 50-day simple moving average. So we're seeing a snapback rally there, but not all of Buffett's names are value. So we'll get into that. I think you're going to share a couple of interesting names that are not value and are doing really quite well. So from here, let's go ahead and take a look at some of those charts, Erin. I'm going
All
to
right.
pass the screen to you. And
Okay. Well, we're talking growth, so I put in some of the growth stocks. We're basically going to look at his top 10 holdings currently. He has quite a few other stocks in his arsenal, but these were the top 10. So these are the 5 that I'm going to look at. And so obviously technology is going to be more of a growth area with Apple. I mean, Apple's kind of a mainstay in most portfolios these days. A financial, they tend to be kind of midway between that growth and value area. Discretionary, certainly a little bit more of an aggressive growth area. Staples, though, right here with Kraft Heinz, that's going to be a defensive sector. And of course, comm services tends to be more on the aggressive growth side. But
mhm.
Verizon, not quite as volatile as some of its compatriots. So let's
I
take
was going to mention something quickly. I think as we get
a
into American Express, I'll share a little insight there, but carry on.
Okay. All right. So Apple, we're going to take a peek at this chart right here. This is my default chart style. I've got my RSI on top, my price momentum oscillator, the PMO, acts a lot like the MACD, and PPO, it's my momentum oscillator, as I said, unbalanced volume. So I could see what the volume is doing, full stochastics, and then my relative strength here. Okay, I was afraid you were just going to tell me I can't see your chart.
Oh, no, it's a beauty. We're looking at it.
Okay, yes, right now, especially, you can see that obviously it was a bit of a difficult decline here for Apple from its top to that intraday low was an over 15% decline from just in January. So that was obviously a really rough period. You can see back here where it did finally stop on the support level. It dipped quite a few times below that support level, but it ultimately closed above it. And you can see a nice move to the upside. Apple certainly getting a lot of love. They reported very good earnings, kind of spurring this rotation into that more growthy area, I think is one
Yeah,
of the
this is one
things.
of his big holdings. He's been adding to that Apple, so it's serving him well.
All right, here's that American Express chart
Hmm.
right now. You can see that from the January top to the low, it was about a 13%, 14% decline. But since that low, and we're talking what, 2 weeks of trading, less than 2 weeks of trading, it's already back up almost 21% for American Express.
It,
So
yeah, it
certainly
gapped
looking.
up on earnings. And the thing I was going to share very quickly here is that Visa and MasterCard also, well, Visa, I believe, came out with earnings as well. Very similar, gap up, huge moves. And they're in that same payment processing area, but they are also have 5% weightings in the XLK, the technology sector. So
MasterCard, I can't remember. It's MA.
MA. So they are considered faster moving and growthier, not so much in that value line. And we can see breaking out of a nice lengthy base there, looking interesting, but
Mhm.
sharing also that fact that it's not just value with uh,
Exactly.
Warren Buffett.
General Motors, here's another one of interest. I really like the way this one is bottoming here. A little bit questionable here now that it's hitting some overhead resistance at those key moving averages, the 200-day EMA in particular. But you can see that stochastics are rising. PMO is trying to turn back up, but that RSI turning down in negative territory does make me a little bit concerned here when I look at this chart. But we do have a double bottom, which is bullish and does suggest we will see a breakout above that 50-day EMA. I just have to say I'm not really quite on board when I look at what's going on with that RSI.
Yeah, they had a negative announcement last week, so we'll see if they
Kraft
can come out of
Heinz,
that.
it's trying to make a bit of a turn here as far as the bear market or whether it was in one. You can see it was down only about 8%. Again, here's that consumer staples defensive area. So you are going to see less volatility. And in this case, certainly the loss was manageable, certainly within stop levels. And now we're starting to see it bottom and come back out and up. The momentum hasn't quite shifted yet, but look at the RSI this time around on this chart where you can see it is moving positive, stochastic starting to rise. We're just seeing the group as a whole not performing very well against the SPY, and that is because we're seeing that rotation into those growth areas. Finally, Verizon, I thought had a really interesting chart. It has broken from a declining trend. If we go from top to bottom, it was only about a 7.5% decline in January. When we've just seen a lot of these stocks, those growth stocks really were hit hard, not so much for Verizon. And since coming out of that low, it is up about 6%, somewhere in that range. But you can see breaking out from that declining trend above all those key moving averages. So I like Verizon here.
Very good.
What do you have?
And yeah, no, I was going to share one last thing. Verizon has a 4.8% yield. I'm going to get a little bit more into that concept with the stocks I will be sharing because those higher yielding stocks fare well in a high interest rate environment. And many of you may know that Warren Buffett does put out a newsletter each year. And many years ago, when inflation was just getting on the rise again, he did highlight these higher yielding, generally more defensive type stocks as a place to park your money. So standing true now. So yeah, so first up, I'm sharing with you one of Buffett's top holdings. It's Kroger Company. Erin, you'll know this as Ralph's. They have other supermarket names as well, but on the West Coast, that's what that company is renowned for as it relates to supermarkets. KR is the ticker symbol. We're looking at a daily price chart, and I had written about this stock during this uptrending period and Buffett in the sense that companies during high inflation, such as now, when if you can raise your prices and do so without pushback, you will fare better. And KR has been, they came out with their numbers in December. So they had a nice run up beyond that. And it was all about their ability to selectively raise prices, which in turn raised revenues. So more recently, we are seeing this pretty significant pullback. The stock has broken down below this red 50-day simple moving average. So when you're looking for turnarounds, you can go back and quite simply look at historical precedents going back into this beginning of November period. The price breaks back above each of these moving averages, pulls up those shorter term moving averages so that they begin to trend upward. So we definitely still have work to do. You also want these momentum indicators to be up there in positive territory. So Kroger not looking attractive here, but just using it as an example of what to be on the lookout because a lot of stocks have a very similar downward trending look and they are attempting to reverse. Let's take a look at a large cap bank holding as part of Berkshire Hathaway. This is BAC, Bank of America. And we can see the stock had a nice rally, certainly all part of that Santa Claus rally. Bank stocks were the first to report their earnings. And Bank of America did have exceptional numbers. However, there were others, JP Morgan among them, that did not have good numbers. And they brought the entire group down with them. But Bank of America is recovering quite nicely. It pulled back to this 200-day simple moving average. And then we did see upon that area of support, the stock closed the day in the upper reaches of its trading range for the day, very bullish activity there. And since then has been trending upward. A nice break above that 21-day would be quite positive for the stock. It's very cheap here. It's trading at 13 times earnings, and that's something that the markets are very aware of during rising interest rate periods. You want to have lower multiple stocks, cheaper, if you will, so that their future earnings are not going or will be at a better level. Let's take a look at Coca-Cola, KO. This is one of Buffett's longest holdings as far as length of time. He's held this stock for quite some time. Another company where it's all about an ability to raise prices. They have products, they very deep brand loyalty. Gap up, we can see the stock finding support, pulled back briefly here, but it is back above each of its moving averages. And I would argue it was due a pullback. It was overbought up here on that RSI. Likewise, the MACD really had nowhere to go. So we had this nice pullbacks are not nice, but as it relates to a newer entry point, we're going to look for that black line up through the red, indicating that that uptrend is back in place. A 2.7% yielder, and earnings are due next Thursday for Coca-Cola. Let's take a look at another well-known bank stock. This is USB, and you'll see a very similar drop here. I talked about that relative to earnings and the broader group falling out of favor. But this stock too is wedging higher. It has now bullishly broken back above each of those moving averages. The RSI is now positive, and we're on the lookout for that nice black line up through the red, that nice crossover, 3.1% yielder. I have one last bank name here. You can see some of Buffett's higher holdings are in the financial space. This is Bank of New York Mellon, and awfully similar. I feel like deja vu here, but this is another one that has bullishly broken back above its shorter term moving averages with your outside momentum indicators. Black line up through the red, another 3.1% yielder, and rising interest rates are generally good for these banks as well, as their profit margins are increased with their lending activity with higher rate environment. So those are the five stocks that I had as it relates to Buffett's biggest holdings. And we are going to take a brief break right now and lots more to cover. We'll be right back.
What if you could look beyond price and identify big moves in the market before they happen? That's why we created the Moxie Indicator Minutes. Hosted by me, T.G. Watkins of Simpler Trading, the creator of the Moxie Indicator. Each week, I'll provide you details about the indicator, what it does, and how it can work for you. Only on StockCharts TV.
And we are back. This is a segment that I think we both enjoy very immensely, and it's called Wisdom of the Week. And this is where we share a pearl of wisdom, again, from our many years of experience. And Erin, I'm going to let you share your wisdom first.
All right. So we were talking at the very beginning, before we even got into these stocks, about looking at those shifts into growth, into value, all of those different mechanics that will clue you in on what's going on in the market and where you really might want to plant yourself, or just, not be involved at all. And so my wisdom of the week is to watch sector rotation for the clues on market cycles. So when you see the shifts into certain sectors or areas, it does give you kind of a clue as to where we are on the spectrum as far as a market, which obviously is going to oscillate down and up, down and up. So you want to find those clues by looking at sector rotation. Right now, we're seeing a lot of movement into growth. That is bullish for the market. When people start to move into defensive areas and value, that is going to mean that the market is probably weak or maybe volatile, and that's a protection against that. So there is, I will go ahead. Should I do my action plan now, or should I wait? I'm going to wait. I'm going to let you.
Okay, yeah, super. Because my wisdom of the week very much segues in with yours, as far as each cycle in the market brings its own favorites, if you will. Stocks will ebb and flow, but we really are in an historically unprecedented period as it relates to the economy. So I'm going to pull mine back a little and talk about an increase in interest rates that is due to take place and begin in March. And then we have this super high inflationary period. So that, I believe, will then trickle down, and it will be seen in this sector rotation. But during periods of higher inflation, you do want to seek out stocks that offer yield. And then also, ideally, if you can get that growth in there, and each of those names that we shared with you today fits those characteristics. So, hence the timing as it relates to Buffett's way of investing.
Yes.
So,
Sounds like a plan really that we're going to get into here.
yes.
Let's talk about our action plan. So we don't usually want to come in here, talk about all this stuff, and then tell you, okay, you should do this, you should do this. We need to tell you how and what to study. And so for my action plan today, it is going to relate back to those market cycles, to sector rotation. I know I've done this as an action plan before, but that tells you just how important really studying sector rotation is. So my action plan, I have not only a chart school article for you to read. If you're watching this on StockCharts TV and you don't have a link, just go to Chart School on StockCharts.com, do a little search on sector rotation, and that will bring you right to the article that we do have linked on YouTube. But I also would recommend that you noodle around, is what I would call it, noodle around on the sector summary on StockCharts.com. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen just really quickly here so I can show you where you could find that sector summary. So it's right here in your member tools area. And you can see sector summary. This is going to bring up all of your sectors. It'll tell you what everything's doing from 1 week to the last 3 months. So if we look, let's look at the last month where we have been experiencing a lot of difficulty. Energy has certainly been a clear winner. Financials with yields rising, that probably had a little bit to do with that. But notice staples right up there as well in the past month, because that is, we had that downtrend. So go in here, kind of mess around with it a little bit. You can do a candle glance and look at all of the different sectors that way. You can do a perf chart and just sort of see as you go through time, which ones tend to perform when. You can just drag that, slide that, and take a peek. So have some fun with it. You can't mess up anything, and you can learn as well.
Very good. Yes. And then from there, of course, you can click onto those sectors and get those sub industry groupings. I always view it as a treasure hunt each and every
Yes,
week. Yeah.
that is very good name nomenclature.
Thank you. Yes. So I'm sorry, my action plan, we already shared our wisdom, is all about staying on top of Buffett's holdings. It is released every quarter, so it's not something that will take up a lot of your time. But I will say it does tend to be market moving when the announcement of those names that he's adding to or subtracting. In fact, we didn't share Chevron. He did add to that, and energy has been doing well. So I did provide for those watching on YouTube a link below to one of the many ways that you can stay on top of that holdings list as far as names being removed or added. And again, it can be market moving. So that is my wisdom of the week. Let's take a minute now, Erin, if you want to share some of your work outside of our weekly show, and
Yes,
we can.
absolutely. Well, that would be my website, decisionpoint.com. If you know me, you know my website. I have 2 letters that I do that I think will really help you with cluing you in. I do a DP alert that tells you all about what happened in the market for the day. It also covers the major areas of the market like dollar, gold, gold miners. And then I have my DP diamonds, which is my letter. I had too many charts yesterday. I had so many possibilities coming out of my scans, but that's where I do my stock picking. You can see some of the stocks that are getting my attention, or you can also hear about what kind of themes are coming through on my scans. Where am I seeing a lot of action, if you will. So those are the 2 things I do, but I would welcome you. You don't have to pay for anything if you don't want to. Sign up for my free newsletter. And then also you can register for my free trading room on Mondays at noon. It's an excellent place to learn from myself as I go through different stock charts, and it's free. If you sign up for that free newsletter, you'll get the recording sent to you every week.
Very good. Lots going on there, Erin. I don't know how you have time for the show.
I know. Tell me about it. I still have to write.
Oh, I love it though. Thankfully, we both love the markets, and I can
Love what we do.
speak to that. So here is my website, MEM Investment Research. My primary service is subscriber based. It is my MEM Edge twice weekly report, and it's all about getting you in front of those sectors that are on the move and those stocks. In fact, my trades last year, I had 140 stocks that I suggested as buys, followed them through, also it highlighted when they should be removed, and it had a 75% win rate. Of the names that were not positive, they were down on average about 4%. So very good track record there. I'm starting to add new names as these growth stocks come into favor. So take a trial. You can go to my website, and down below, it will give you an opportunity to take a super low price 4-week trial. So, Erin, I think that does it for this week. Everyone, have an incredible weekend, and we look forward to sharing our wisdom with you again next week.
Hey guys, Dave Keller here with StockCharts.com. Thanks so much for watching our video. If you enjoyed it, and we hope you did, hit the like button right below. Also, we have so much new content every day. Consider subscribing to the channel. Just hit the subscribe button in the video or right below. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Have a fantastic day.